What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Favale coming at you as always with the one, the only, the legendary, the indelible, the certified fantabulous Mr. Grant Hughes. We're both very excited, not because we changed content plans, since there's just no covering the NBA normally right now with the trade deadline coming up, so we're going to lean into that. We're excited because my mic is plugged in and working, unlike our 3-hour Western Conference trade deadline primer where I did manipulate the audio as best I could in post, but I was not happy afterwards. So I'm ecstatic that my mic is working this time. Grant, how are you doing though?
I'm doing well, and you sound, more importantly, fantastic.
You told me that last time too, though, so I feel like I just can't take you.
You don't believe me anymore. I thought it was fine. I don't know. Maybe my ears are going, or I just have lower audio quality standards than you do. Probably both.
Maybe it's that. I just assumed that you knew I was going to harp on it, and you were just like, "Get this idiot to shut up." Like, no, you sounded great. The acoustics were amazing.
Well, to be fair, what I said was I wouldn't have noticed if you hadn't said anything, which is not a total disregard of like it sounded less than perfect. But again, wouldn't have noticed. I feel like that's a fair. And I also was like, let's avoid Dan spiraling on this issue. So that's I try to do that sometimes.
Neither of us are going to spiral as we try something new here, where if you've been around for a while, you've seen me react to articles that have trade ideas. We're both going to do it this time. Bleacher Report put out a piece, one new trade idea for every NBA team 1 week before the 2025 NBA trade deadline. We have not looked at any of it, or Grant lied. Grant said he looked at the first trade. The other 29 he has not. We're just going to react to them, give our thoughts, and anything we say is with all due respect, because as the authors of these pieces in the past, and I was just asked this, I went on Real GM Radio with Wes Goldberg, asked me like, what goes into making a fake trade? And my snarky response was, I'm trying to just piss off as many people as possible because I love it when everyone's angry and saying mean things to me. That is still the dumbest, like people saying, here's that attention you wanted. It's like, yeah, I made this so that people would yell at me online and make me feel bad about myself. I love it.
I'm glad you have a preface of that nature, because I was going to say these are fucking hard to do. And I personally don't like doing them. So Zach, who did this, great respect. We've worked with him forever. Like, these are hard. I'm not sure anybody would do these of their own volition. There are things called assignments, and we all got to do them at our jobs, and we do the best we can. And Zach, the one trade I looked at already, I loved it. So like, I'm just echoing what you're saying. Like, we are not knocking anything here. These are really hard. And if you can come up with half of these that are any good, you've succeeded. So I wanted to throw that out there too.
And for anyone who thinks they're not hard, we should do something. Join our Discord. And at some point, maybe over the offseason, where it's like, we'll take your trade submissions and then give us permission to pick them apart like a typical commenter would. And we'll show you what
that's not good for anybody. I don't think that's...
Could you be that, not sadistic's not the right word, but could you be that intentionally annoying? I think I could do it.
Could I? Yeah, sure. Try me. All right, we are beginning alphabetically, and we're not in charge of the alphabet this time, which is a huge plus. We're just going to go along with Zach with the Atlanta Hawks. So what he's got here is the Hawks getting Jakob Poeltl from the Toronto Raptors and sending to Toronto Clint Capella, Kobe Buffkin, a 2025 second-round pick via the Wolves, and a 2027 second-round pick via the Clippers. So I told you already, I kind of like this one. I like it more for one team than the other. I'm curious what your first reaction is to this.
I don't love it for the Raptors because I guess the logic here would be they want to get out from under Jakob Poeltl's deal.
Mm-hmm.
And you're getting 2 seconds, and we don't know. Kobe Buffkin's injured, and like he hasn't shown a ton. And you have enough. Do you have enough guard prospects at this point? Are you going to keep Davion Mitchell, Jamal Shead, Jacoby Walter, Emmanuel Quickley's there, RJ Barrett is there. I don't love this for the Raptors, but it's a pretty, Jakob Poeltl and Onyeka Okongwu, is your front court. Not going to get a lot of spacing out of that, but that's like two different really type of bigs. I like it for the Hawks. What about you?
So I kind of like it for both. My very first reaction was, I think I prefer it for Toronto just because I don't feel like Poeltl is someone that, like, he's fine, right? He's like a mid-tier center. He's serviceable, like a decent starter. You maybe low end, your mileage will vary. So I like the idea of basically just swapping him for a guy who plays the same position for the balance of this year and is expiring money. So that's where it starts for me. It's a flyer on Bufkin, who's hurt now and hasn't shown much, and you're getting seconds for it. So and then so I like it for the Raptors, and then for Atlanta, again, no incentive to tank. Don't control 25, 26, 27 firsts. So you're getting someone in there that I don't have I should have pulled up the salaries for Toronto, but like Pirtle's got what, one more year after this one? Is it, or is it two?
He's got wasn't his a 4-year deal, so he's got 2 more.
Okay. That like it a little less for that reason, but the idea would be that you can sort of be in a position where you have an expiring decent sized salary fairly soon. I would have liked it better if he was expiring next year. I should have had that pulled up.
He has a player option for the following year. The Boo Birds would come out about that pick that Toronto ended up conveying if it ends up becoming Kobe Bufkin in 2 seconds, essentially, though, because if that's what you turn Pirtle into. I never would have thought of this one, though. So
no.
Boston Celtics idea, Grant. They received Javonte Green. I already love it for Boston. And the Pelicans receive Jaden Springer and a 2030 second-round pick.
Well, okay, so you're getting the Jaden Springer thing is a tax savings move. Green makes just a little. What does he make? Over 2. So that's you're saving a couple $1 million, which probably equates to like $8 million. Because you could save about 16 if you dump Springer for nothing. So it makes sense for Boston. Green, I think is probably just better than Springer. Maybe at least has shot it better. And then what New Orleans does not duck the tax here, though. Maybe that's the hang up.
They go deeper into it, and so they would need to have enough because they're not paying it. I like getting a flyer on the 2030 second-round pick, and even just Jaden Springer for the rest of the year, have him go out there, see what he can do defensively, especially with Herb Jones injured. You would have to have, I think you need moves for Jeremiah Robinson Earl and Daniel Tice lined up as well as dumps so that then you still duck the tax after this.
Which is totally, that's totally feasible. It doesn't.
They're just minimums. You send them into, and the 2030 second, I mean, Boston will probably still be pretty good, but it's far enough down the line that it's a not a lottery ticket literally, but a second round lottery ticket.
Yeah. All right. Brooklyn is going to get Marcus Smart, Gigi Jackson, and a 2025 first, which with top 5 protection from the Memphis Grizzlies for Cam Johnson. So I think you're not getting the 2 firsts that Brooklyn reportedly is kind of holding out for with Cam Johnson. And I do think, it's not the worst thing to hold on to Cam Johnson. We've talked about this a little bit through the deadline. If you don't get what you want, because your rebuild you've got the 25 and 26 firsts or control of that back. So you can be bad next year. You can wait to try to move him at the deadline again. The risk is Cam Johnson's basically never been better. So you probably want to move him now. There's no guarantee that his value is going up. I don't know. I'm trying to think who I like this for the most off rip. I think top 5 protection 25. So that first coming from Memphis is going to be in the 20s.
It's going to be number 25.
This hinges on Gigi Jackson, right? How good do you think he's going to be?
Yeah.
Is he someone, and I've very hard to say because he's just only recently come back. And so you're absorbing Marcus Smart, who's got, let's see,
another year left on his contract.
Just one more year, right? So he'll be expiring next year?
Yeah.
It's not the worst thing to have a 20-something million expiring contract if you're thinking you're rebuilding again next year. I hesitate on Brooklyn's side because I think maybe you could do better than essentially a mid to late 20s first. But if you think Gigi Jackson is going to be something, that's the equivalent of another first, maybe, right?
Yes. I just think the other first, the actual first you're getting, needs to have more potential, especially because they're taking on Smart's money, which is net negative right now. So if Memphis moved it to a 2026 first, I think we're probably closer.
Doesn't Brooklyn also have 4 firsts in this draft as it is?
They do have, I think they do have multiples. So yeah, I mean, and for the Grizzlies, I love the Cam Johnson fit on offense. I would worry, and maybe it doesn't matter because Marcus Smart hasn't been healthy, but we've talked a lot about who's the point of attack defender guy that you trust in the playoffs. And Scottie Pippen is small. Jalen Wells is a rookie. That's not Desmond Baines' bag. Will Vince Williams be healthy? So if you're getting rid of Marcus Smart, you've now it's it's not going to be him either. But I think if you made this, would you still do it as Memphis if it was a 2026 first?
What are the protections on it? Similar or not?
It'd be top 5.
I don't think I would. Even though I'd love to get off Smart's, basically turn Smart's money into Cam Johnson. Um, and if I'm Brooklyn, my preference is definitely to go farther out with the pick
Yeah.
if I can, for multiple reasons. But this might be what you get for Cam Johnson. You might not, that 2 firsts offer may just not be out there.
And look, this would be the equivalent of 2 firsts. What is Gigi Jackson in terms of firsts then? Because
Right.
we already know that the 2025 first is going to be in the bottom 5.
Yeah.
Okay, for Charlotte, they get David Roddy and a 2025 second round pick via Minnesota. This is going to be a banger. And the Atlanta Hawks get Vasa Micic. I like this for Charlotte. Just load up on like additional second round. I mean, Minnesota's second round pick will be meh, but just get additional second round picks. I mean, LaMelo's injured, so you could use Vasa Micic's playmaking, but at the same time, you're not trying to win games at this point anyway. I think you can justify this for both sides. And with the Hawks, I don't know what their aspirations are post Jalen Johnson injury, but they need another playmaker. I mean, they need a lot of stuff, but they need another playmaker type. And Micic, his money for next year is non-guaranteed. So you either get rid of him or you could guarantee it and try to use him as part of another move.
Yeah, it's just for Atlanta, it's fairly clear. It seems more like a next year focused move. Although the Hawks actually need another point guard-esque player. So I kind of like it for Atlanta. Charlotte, I guess the 25 second from the Wolves, that's going to be, I don't know, what, 40 something, mid 40s, late 40s, maybe.
Yeah.
Might be worth it. Although, like, if you're Charlotte, maybe you just want, I guess, you know what? If you're Charlotte, it's more valuable to you to get an asset than to have the like flexibility of Micic, his non-guarantee, right? You're getting something. So I guess I get it from both sides here.
I guess the issue is how much more expensive is Roddy's at 2.8 this year, and Vasa makes like a lot more. So the Hawks would be in the tax after this trade, and I'm not doing
That's
that.
right.
But they would need to have another move lined up to duck it.
Because they're not paying it. We agree
but
on that.
Micic
Right?
is like a theory in Atlanta. I think they're the team that's kind of filling a need as part of this deal.
Sure.
Chicago Bulls.
Here we go. They're going to get, here we go. The Bulls are going to receive Kyle Anderson, Gary Payton II, Guy Santos, deal breaker, forget it, and a 2025 first round pick with lottery protection. The Warriors will get Nikola Vucevic. My first reaction is I would much prefer this be seconds, even though the lottery protection helps. So it is nice, though, that the Bulls, from the Warriors' perspective, are taking on the next 2 years of Kyle Anderson's money. Payton's expiring. Santos, I mean, like, he's an energy guy, but he is essentially a two-way player. Has not proved he's more than that so far. I don't know. What are you hung up on the 25 first versus a couple seconds as like a sticking point here?
Yeah, just because Vooch isn't putting you in a better position enough to where it's, oh, thank God we got off of Kyle Anderson's money. You still have Vooch on the books then for $20 million next year.
Yeah.
So I probably wouldn't do this if I was Golden State. I'd hold the line at seconds. And even look, I'd ask you if it was seconds, but then you had to give up Kevon Looney instead of Kyle Anderson, are you still doing it?
Man, that's a tough trade-off. So the problem is, so Anderson's like 9-ish and Vucevic is a little over 20. So and then Looney's obviously expired, or I forget if it's a team option or just expiring, but either way, it's coming off the books if you want it to. I think I'd be more inclined to do it if it's Looney in seconds, even though, I mean, that 25 first is going to be, I mean, you might just keep that pick. That's the other thing.
Right.
Like if it doesn't convert to something else, if not conveyed, you're just giving up salary you don't want for Vucevic, who ultimately next year might be salary you don't want. But that the lottery protection is interesting. Theoretically, this should make you good enough that you convey the pick, though, right? Like, that's the thing.
I mean, would it?
Well, that would be the thinking from the Warriors side. Is we don't.
It does, but what if you end up sending number 15 or 16? Are you okay? Let's say that pick is number 16.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that going to Chicago?
That's why my initial reaction was like, I just don't want the first in it from the Warriors' perspective. If I'm the Bulls, like, yeah, yes, please. Of course,
This
you'd
should,
rather have the first than seconds, even if it
right.
means
And
taking Anderson.
yeah, so I would do this for Chicago with Golden State. I'm not giving up if I'm giving up a first round pick, I need someone back better than Vooch.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
You did keep Quentin Post though.
Yeah.
So,
but you lose Guy Santos. I mean, imagine the fan riots that are going to happen. Oh, this is for you, Dan.
The Cleveland Cavaliers received Chris Boucher. The Raptors received George Niang, a 2025 second that comes from Milwaukee, and a 2027 second that comes from Denver. Is that so? For the Cavs, it's a yes. I think Chris Boucher is more playable in the postseason, and George Niang's been pretty good this year. Do you think those 2 seconds are enough for Toronto to take on the next year of Niang's contract? I think it would be, just because they do seem determined to roll over their expiring salary slots into other salary slots.
Yeah, I think because there were some rumblings, weren't there, about, well, they might just try to re-sign Boucher. They're not going to do it in a way that gives them the flexibility that Niang's deal might. I think for me, obviously, if you're the Cavs, I think you do it. You get a different dimension from a third big that I like a lot. Although, I mean, how different? I guess you get the shot blocking stuff. Niang is a very different kind of stretch.
And you also get out from under Niang's money for next year, which just might have some value as you're looking to use a mid-level exception. And also Karis LeVert's a free agent this year. You got to sign. I'm very curious. We haven't talked about this, and at this point, I default to it'll be the mid-level or less, if that.
Yeah.
But Ty Jerome's free agent market's going to be fascinating.
Yes, I think. I mean, I'm trying to talk myself into Toronto side of it. Just zooming out, you're getting 2 second rounders for Chris Boucher, who's coming off the books, and you don't know how comfortable you are with whatever number it takes to bring him back. That's Niang's not going to break the bank. I could see Toronto. If somebody says no, I think it's Toronto, but I think it kind of works for both teams.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look great when Chris Boucher is shooting 37% from 3 this year, and he's been on a heater lately, but Niang shot the ball pretty well. Yeah, he's at 39.9% on about similar volume in less playing time. So I think this is fringe for Toronto. I think I love it for Cleveland, even though Niang's been pretty good for them. Can I throw out a bonus Cavs trade idea?
Sure.
I pitched this on the Real GM radio. Jalen Tyson, their 2031 first round pick, and George Niang and Craig Porter Jr. for Robert Williams III and Tamani Kamara.
Oh my God. Well, why would Cleveland not do that?
Yeah, great. I think that doesn't get Portland to at least think. You get Tyson and you get that 2031 pick. So it's 2 firsts.
I like that I think that's great for both sides. It was a Cavs 2031 first, and what was the other one?
Jalen Tyson, and plus I think it was George Niang and Craig Porter Jr. for Tamani Kamara and Robert Williams III.
Yeah, I think I really like Kamara a lot, but you do, when you think about it, have to acknowledge how helpful is he really for where Portland is? He makes more sense on a good team. He's one of those guys. So I could see Portland just valuing the picks. And is that 2031 hypothetically unprotected?
I think it has to probably be top 4.
Yeah, I like that one.
If I'm Cleveland, I like it because, I mean, RW3 is upgrade from the Tristan Thompson minutes, sure.
Yeah.
I think they're either out of the tax after that, or you just dump Tristan Thompson at that point, or someone else.
Yeah.
The thing that's interesting, though, is Tamani Kamara might just be the 5th guy to close with you, or if you decide you want to close small, then Tamani Kamara is probably definitely closing, because him next to Mobley, who would be the one big closer, that's hilarious. And also, Tamani Kamara just defends the point of attack. That's just what he does a lot in Portland. That takes a lot away from Darius Garland and, to a lesser extent, Donovan Mitchell.
Right, you can hide one of them if you need to. Which, if it's Max Strus or whoever, it's kind of like Dean Wade is. I don't know. We always have liked Dean Wade as the 5th guy, but Kamara is just better than Dean Wade at basically everything you need him to be good at, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would normally say Dean Wade's better on offense, but Tamani Kamara he continues to just do some of the drives he's done, some of the dribbles. Yeah. So I wanted to see if you would like that one.
I do like that one.
We're on to bonus Cavs one. Let us know what you think about the bonus Cavs trade. Dallas Mavericks is you, Mr. Hughes.
All right. The Mavs get Kelly Olynyk from the Toronto Raptors in exchange for Maxi Kleber, Jaden Hardy, and a 2025 second-round pick, which will come via the Nuggets or the Sixers. So
I'm pretty sure that's more favorable because I've written so many trades or talked about them that it's more favorable. So Philly's second-round pick could theoretically be like in the 30s or early 40s.
Oh yeah, right? What today? It's definitely in the like.
It actually might be
30s.
Closer to like in the 40s. Aren't they on a winning streak as we're recording this? So
obviously the Mavs need a big. Derek Lively's hurt, Kleber's hurt. Gafford's been solid, but that's a lot to ask of him. Dwight Powell injured and is also just kind of at adult in the room stages of his career. How many years has Dwight Powell been like the locker room presence guy on the like? It's been a long time.
Udonis Haslam West at this point, right?
Kinda.
Except he came over from another team, so maybe that doesn't count.
So I think there are two questions here. One, if you're Dallas, are you confident that Kelly Olynyk is like playoff viable? Because that needs to be where your focus is, and I think that's an iffy one. And then I still haven't quit Jaden Hardy, so I'm hung up a little bit on that. I think if Dallas, look, there's only so many available guys. I'd certainly rather do this for Boucher than Olynyk if we're talking about Toronto big guys you could trade for. I think the Raptors should do this. And I think Dallas, I would hesitate a little bit just because I don't know that Olynyk is going to help you when you need him to, right?
Yeah, I understand like the need right now. Like he would certainly fill minutes while Derek Lively's out and Kleber's out, and even Dwight Powell was dealing with hip stuff. But I'd have a tough time doing this, and maybe I'm still too married to the concept of Maxi Kleber more so than the player. And I think what's also a little difficult is you're shaving some payroll here, but like I would also, if you're going to give up this, like Jaden Hardy is part of it, I think I'd want to get out of the tax as well.
Yeah, I'm looking up Olynyk. I can never remember if Olynyk's on the hook for 13.4 next year. So then I guess Lively's not paid yet. So, but between Olynyk and Gafford, and I guess you moved off Kleber, the salary is not crazy because then bonus, you have a 13.4 million expiring next year.
Yeah, and it's only what, like $2.5 million more than what Kleber is going to make next year.
Yeah. So I guess to me, although if it's a difference between tax and not tax, that's something to think about. But if you're Dallas, you're supposed to be good enough that a little bit of tax is kind of the price of, it's expected.
Would you like this trade better if instead of Olynyk, it's Chris Boucher?
Yeah, I would. For sure. Wouldn't you?
You save some more money on that.
Who am I asking? Would you, Dan?
Yeah, I might like it a little better. You'd be a Markieff Morris salary dump away from ducking the tax too, I believe. I'm eyeballing all this stuff now. I don't have the calculators out. Up to the Denver Nuggets. This is a tough team. I'm interested to see. Oh my God. All right. The Denver Nuggets received DeAndre Hunter and Bogdan Bogdanovic. The Hawks received Michael Porter Jr., Zeke Naji, and Denver's 2031 first, but it's a swap. So it's not the actual pick. So it'd be MPJ, Naji, and that 2031 swap for DeAndre Hunter and Bogdan Bogdanovic. My first instinct is I don't know if there's enough upside here for Atlanta, who they don't control their next 3 first rounders. And there's a chance that I know Bogey's been injured this year and bad. And now Jalen Johnson's injured. But like now you're giving up DeAndre Hunter, who might win 6th man of the year. Michael Porter Jr. is going to fill a lot of the shooting, gives you more size positionally for sure. This is one of those, I don't like it for either team. And so I'm wondering if actually, maybe do I love it for Denver? I don't like it for either team, which makes me think that's probably a pretty good trade.
I like it a little more for Denver. And that's presupposing Hunter can keep this up and that Bogdanovic can be better. But were you playing with Jokic, which I feel like is a part of the appeal here. If you're the
Hawks, your rotation, you go from trading one playable guy into 2 playable guys,
right? And you are getting off the Naji deal, which has just been an impossibility. It seems like since the moment he signed it. At least, and it's a swap. So who knows what's going to happen in 2031? Presumably, if you're the Nuggets, you should. Jokic will be.
I think
34.
Honestly, if that's just a swap, Atlanta can't do that, right? Like you would have to think that they would have to believe that the Bogdanovic deal or what's left on Hunter's contract is bad because they have to be looking at themselves and saying, I mean, I guess Jokic will be in his mid to late 30s at that point, but
Right.
what are the odds? First of all, a lot of swaps don't get exercised in the first place. And this is one of those where it's what about Atlanta makes you think that they're going to be in a position to where they would definitely be better than the, like if you were getting I don't like what team swap would like if you're getting a Phoenix Suns swap in 2031, it's probably it's a lot different.
And I'm thinking, do you think Porter Jr.'s contract is just objectively bad, or is it seem worse because the Nuggets are where they are with their
It's that.
inflexibility?
It's that. It's because first of all, he does, and I guess you're getting DeAndre Hunter and Bogdan Bogdanovic, who will both get threes up, but like he does something on the roster that no one else does. Maybe
That,
Julian Strother, but he's never going to play enough minutes for it to matter at that scale. And to do
y-
it, by the way, at that size as
yeah.
Michael Porter Jr. is incredible.
If you're the Nuggets, you're really banking on because you're right. Porter is just like the only plus shooter on the roster, so you're really banking on Hunter and Bogdanovich filling that void as shooters, which like isn't crazy. There's definitely a scenario where this makes the Nuggets better this year. Like that is absolutely on the table. It's just not a certainty given Bogdanovich's play so far, injury history, all that stuff, and Hunter just being the best. It's a buy high. It's a buy high on Hunter, which is a little scary.
Honestly, I might be more likely to do. You'd have to step out of your way there, but can you include Najee and Saric? And so that's 8.9 and 4.7. So we're talking what, like 13 and a half million bucks, close to it. Can you get to Bogdanovich or Hunter and then just include your 2031 outright without having to send out Michael Porter Jr.? So I think getting to Hunter, he's over 20, right? He
Yes.
makes so what is Bogey at? Is that 17.3? So that's not like, would you give up Strother and Jalen Pickett in that 4-for-1? You're going to need to rope in other teams.
Yeah.
But Julian Strother's 2.6, Pickett's 1.9. So what are we at there? So we're at 3.5 there. Plus, I don't even think that gets you all the way there now that I'm looking at
And
it.
anytime you start getting to 4-for-1, it gets to the point of like this probably isn't going to happen because
Mid-season, yeah, it's like that's not going to happen. Who do you like this better for though? Really quickly.
I think I'm more dubious about the Hawks side. So by default, I think I like it better for Denver, especially since it's just a swap.
Yeah.
You retain a little bit of upside there.
Detroit Pistons are you?
All right. Okay. We're moving Brandon Ingram. The Pistons get Brandon Ingram from the New Orleans Pelicans for Tim Hardaway Jr., Isaiah Stewart, recently suspended because too many flagrant points. Not really germane to this discussion.
As many flagrant points 6 as 3-pointers made this year, which is 8.
I mean, didn't have that on the bingo card. Well, maybe you should have. I just don't know where his shot went. All right, and a 2025 second from the Raptors and a 27 second from either Brooklyn or Dallas. All right, so we got to start with New Orleans side of this, I think, and say, is this the best you can do for Ingram? You're getting a couple seconds. You're getting Hardaway, who's got money on the books. Or no, I can never remember. Damn it, we just talked.
Hardaway's expiring.
Yeah. Stewart I like Stewart. I mean, if he could shoot it like he did a couple years ago, he makes sense as the center next to Zion. Because if you can use him as a spacer and his defensive like versatility and like that's interesting. This might just be the best you can do for Ingram. Like that's really on the table. And then I don't know what I think about Ingram in Detroit though. What do you think about that side of it?
Oh, I hate it. I mean, for the rest of this year, I think you can make a case because with Jay and Ivy out, like you need the other creator, but when he's not that good playing off the ball, and you also like you could never. How often are you going to want to play him with one, let alone like of Ron Holland or Asar Thompson?
Yeah, and it's you run into similar problems as you had in New Orleans, where it's like if you could get assurances that Ingram would just be a different kind of player, just be the catch and shoot 3 guy and not need the ball so much, maybe, but not for that. Like that's not a role you want to have him occupy for the money it's going to take to keep him. So I think I'm hung up on that part of it and giving up Stewart just for some. I mean, you may not even be able to resign Ingram. That's the other thing.
Yeah, I would honestly, if it was like Simone Fontecchio instead of Isaiah Stewart, I might consider it if I'm Detroit. And then
Maybe.
I don't know if that's enough. So what is Hardaway at? He's at actually that might be enough to just make it work. You're using all your cap space in that scenario, but you have Hardaway's at 16.2 and Simone Fontecchio's at 7.7. So you're at 4. That is enough to bring back
Yeah.
Brandon Ingram.
Yep.
So I might do that. Just because who's your bigs after this for Detroit? Jalen Duren and Paul Reed?
That's it. Yeah.
So would you do that as Detroit?
I like it better. I don't know. I still don't know if I get there, but I like it better.
I might do it if I'm New Orleans too. Fontecchio and THJ with the number 37 pick right now and then another second. I'd think about it, but I think you could also make the case, take it to free agency and either sign and trade him then, or do you get Brandon Ingram at a number that you like?
There is that, yeah.
Over to the Golden State Warriors. They're your team, but they're my team now, Grant. Golden State Warriors get Vooch. And is this the same exact trade we already talked about?
No, it's a little different. I looked ahead.
Okay, so
just now, not in advance.
The Bulls get Kyle Anderson, Gary Payton II, Guy Santos, a 2025 second-round pick. It's protected top 37 and a 2030 second-round pick. If I'm the Warriors, I'm absolutely doing this.
I think, yeah, because you're getting the best of everything. You're getting off of Anderson, which we were kind of like, we liked that about the first one on the Bulls side earlier. Peyton Santos, and this even you get protections on that second. It's not only 2 seconds, but you get protections on one of them. I love that. I think you pull this trigger real fast if you're the Warriors.
Is this enough for the Bulls? Honestly, I think the Bulls should do it because you're taking on Anderson's money, but Anderson over the next 2 years basically makes what Vooch makes next season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're giving yourself more flexibility, and like you could just Anderson, he's I don't want to say more dynamic, but you could play him at more positions than you can Nikola Vucevic.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and he makes less than half as much, so that's a factor. I think you definitely say yes if you're Golden State. I think you probably still say yes if you're the Bulls. And I do think this is more representative of the kinds of offers they are going to get for Vooch. Maybe I'll be wrong. I just don't see the first on the table for him.
I think if the other offers are comparable, or if this is the best offer, I do think it's good enough to take. And could you imagine with the way that the Bulls play offense this year, what Guy Santos would look like on this team?
Just only my dreams.
Houston, Grant.
All right. Okay. Houston is getting Josh Richardson in a 2026 second from the Heat for a 2026 second. This is a tax-related move, I suppose. Essentially, yeah. I love the 31 to 55 protection on the Heat pick coming in.
By the way, shout out to Zach for including. I know you do this, but like, shout out for including that because this is the stuff I agonize over.
You need to know the protections on seconds. Yeah, I get it. I'm trying to just skim the justification, which is just like it's got to just be financial.
I think if I'm Houston, I mean. If you're getting the Lakers' 26 second round pick just to rent out a roster spot, which they don't have at the moment, though. So who are you waiving? Unless does Houston have a roster spot? Am I miscounting? I'll double check that. But
you could find somebody.
Well, who do you want to waive though? Look at who's on there. So it's what's that?
I'm gonna pull it up right now and I'll tell you.
Like they have players they don't use, but like you just want to waive. Like you don't want to waive Jock Landale on the off
actually. They're weirdly hard to find someone to waive.
That was my dilemma.
Yeah. It's like Aaron Holiday. No, you use him sometimes. Like I don't know. That's tough.
And yeah, they have 15 roster spots. So I don't think I'm doing this if I'm Houston. Like if you have another deal lined up where you're consolidating Tate and Landale, 2 of Tate, Landale, or I guess, I know you can't waive Aaron Holiday. You gave him, was that a player option? That better be a team option. Yeah, that's a team option. Whew. Yeah, they need a shooter in there. And so unless you have another deal lined up where you're consolidating and it's like 2 of Green, Landale, or Tate for somebody else, I get the asset play, but when you don't have a roster spot, that's tough.
Yeah, that is.
Especially do you remember still injured, by the way. So
this doesn't get the Heat out of the tax either.
No, they're like 13 million.
13.2 into it.
Don't worry. Anyone who's listening, here's a teaser. We're about to get them out of the tax later. Don't you worry. The Pacers get Cam Johnson, who they've been linked to in exchange for Obi Toppin, Aaron Nesmith, and a 2028 first round pick and a 2030 first round pick swap. Wow. I do think this is accurately reflective or close to it of how the Obi Toppin deal is viewed around the league.
Because
I
you're
can't do
paying
this if
something
I'm
to get
Indy,
off
Grant.
that. It looks like, right? It looks
Yeah,
like this is because if the Nets are jumping all over this, aren't they?
they should. I can't do it if I'm Indy because Cam Johnson doesn't even fill, maybe positionally, he fills your biggest need, but he doesn't do the stuff that you need the most out that position. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
No, does it not? Was that me tripping over my words?
Well, now I'm stuck on the Miles Turner side of it as I'm reading what Zach is. You got to mention Miles Turner's free agency and anything the Pacers do. You kind of have to think of that aspect of it. So Johnson's what 22 ish next year. Toppin. So you're saying I don't think you're. Most deals you'd imagine the Pacers doing would be with an eye towards getting a little bit cheaper, so that it's easier to fit Turner back in next year on a number you can deal with. And I don't think this doesn't accomplish that either.
And you get, I mean, you get a little worse defensively, at least, right? I know Toppin,
Yeah,
whatever on
Neesmith
defense.
matters. Neesmith
Yeah.
matters for them. That's kind of the problem, but Neesmith really is important. I mean, the Nets are just like they're hoping this is a mistake, I think, and just saying yes.
They're hoping it's a mistake. Yeah, that's especially for where they're at. They would do it. I don't think there's a chance. Even what would you have to remove, do you think, for the Pacers? Even if you took away the swap, are the Pacers doing this?
So it's just that, I mean, that's pretty light protection on that 28 too. I think maybe if you took the swap out and made the 28 first, like lottery protected, maybe.
And then I don't think Brooklyn. I mean, Neesmith could be useful for them, but I don't think Brooklyn's doing
yeah,
that.
right. Then Brooklyn says no because it's like, well, we just get 2 from somebody else.
It's interesting though that you did. I'm sure. I don't know if Pacers internally actually wanted this, but I think a lot of Pacers fans, just because they seem to be very high on these guys, would be happy that you kept Jarris Walker and Benedict Mathurin. The Clippers are your team, Mr. Hughes.
All right, the Clippers are going to get Jordan Clarkson from the Jazz for PJ Tucker, Bones Highland, and a 2030 second and a 2031 second. So Tucker Highland 2 seconds, as distant as you can make them, for Jordan Clarkson.
I'm sold for the Clippers. You get out of the tax and you get.
I'm sold for the Jazz. I think 2 seconds for
get out of Clarkson's money for next year, even though
cap
space doesn't
absolutely
matter.
I think this is a win-win.
That's a great trade. Shout out Zach. But this does. I'll double check it very quickly before I move on to the Lakers. But this does get them out of the tax because Tucker's at 11.6 and Bones is 4.2. So you're talking about 15.8 million. And aren't they only like $2 million into the tax? How much does Clarkson make this year? Clarkson is at 14. So you need to make another deal to get out of the tax. But I think
you're going the right direction tax wise if you're the Clippers here.
Right. So yes, I would do this for both teams. That's a great trade. The Lake. Oh God, De'Aaron Fox is pictured. De'Aaron Fox to the Lakers for Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, a 2029 first round pick, and a 2031 first round pick. That's top 5 protected. And then if it doesn't convey, that means that you get nothing because you can't trade a first that's further out. So, and the Lakers have no seconds in that year. I'll double check that. So that, I mean, 2 first round picks and Austin Reeves plus Rui and Gabe Vincent for De'Aaron Fox. I'm going to start from the Lakers side. I don't know that I could, with how well Austin Reeves has played, I don't know that I could give up him and both those first for De'Aaron Fox.
I agree with you, and I got there a different way, which is from the Kings side. I'm like, yeah, I think I do this pretty easily. I would be concerned that 2031 disappears essentially if it's not conveyed. But we're assuming unprotected 29 first, which I'm pretty interested in from the Lakers. And Reeves, like, again, if you're the Kings, it's like you're kind of over a barrel as it is. It's just sort of, you could wait till the offseason. I think the Kings say yes. And then I do think the Lakers might hesitate a little bit because of Reeves and because like this is your move. This is it, right? This is the extent what you can do to add to this roster. And it might not be enough.
I think, would you do it as the Lakers if you're including Vanderbilt instead of Reeves, and then you just have to give up both these first round picks?
So then you're left with Fox and Reeves and AD and LeBron, and I guess like Max Christie is really important now. I like it more.
I think I would do it, but no, I'm sorry. Look, you have 2 players who are all-stars this year.
Yeah.
LeBron made the all-star team. This is the type of all-in trade you make. I just, as the Lakers, Rui's probably net neutral on his contract. The Lakers clearly value him than anyone else around the league. I don't know if I'm taking that as the Kings, but if you did maybe top 1 or 2 protection on that final pick and you're just replacing Reeves' salary with Vanderbilt, and if you need more money, the Lakers, they can send out like a Jalen Hood-Schifino's expiring or a Christian Wood or somebody. I would do that for the Lakers. And if I'm the Kings, unless I'm getting better first round equity, I mean, the Kings probably don't want to rebuild. That's what we've run into. So they'd probably say no, but I think that's a viable enough offer to say we could take it. Like if you were going to go the rebuilding route to get those 2 Lakers first, but you're taking on money into the future though too, which is weird.
I think maybe this will come down to, if you're looking for nits to pick, it's just like maybe the Kings can get something better. Like the Lakers, this is what they can offer. This is kind of their max offer essentially, because it doesn't include Vanderbilt. Like it's very favorable for.
You could throw in Dalton Connect would be like the only.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that the Kings can expect a heck of a lot better than this. Maybe we'll see. We'll find out soon, I suppose.
The Kings should probably
for a trade of this level. This is like pretty. It's impressive that it's like causing us to think this much about it.
On to the Memphis Grizzlies. Cam Johnson to Memphis for Marcus Smart, Santi Aldama, and a 26 first round pick. Ooh. So I think this is closer than the other one that had Gigi Jackson in the 2025 first going to Brooklyn. I think if I'm the Nets, I mean, do you want to pay Santi Aldama though when you already have Nick Claxton?
I mean, maybe you do. I think maybe you want to have Santi. I don't know. Like Aldama's been
not going to cost a ton. That's for sure.
Yeah. You get off Smart, which is not nothing from Memphis's perspective. I guess maybe the quibble is Cam is not the big wing defender that you kind of ideally want if you're Memphis, or that certainly is discussed as something that they should want. He's still, I mean, he's the best player in this deal. The 26th first, I think between the 26th first and Aldama, I kind of like it for Brooklyn. If you can just say, we don't care about having to eat the Smart salary because we're not going to be good next year anyway.
Yeah. And I guess with Memphis, Santi Aldama's playing a ton for them, but you have Zach Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr. and Jay Huff and Brandon Clark. So in theory, you should be able to navigate his absence. And now you don't have to worry about paying him.
Yeah.
I think this is a both sides probably say yes deal.
Yeah, I think so. As long as Aldama is viewed as like the equivalent of a first round asset, which I think is reasonable if you're Brooklyn. He's young enough. He's improved enough. Like that might really be a thing. All right. I'll take the Heat here. The Heat are getting De'Aaron Fox on the move again, Kevin Huerter, and a 2025 second round pick coming from Denver or Philly via Phoenix. The Suns are getting, we're going to be talking about this one for a while. The Suns get Jimmy Butler. The Kings get Bradley Beal, Jaime Jaquez, a 27 first round pick. That's one of those worst ofs coming from Utah, Cleveland, or Minnesota. A 29 first from the Heat, and a 29 first. Again, this is one of those worst ofs from Utah, Cleveland, or Minnesota. So let's talk about Sacramento's side. Well, first of all, if Bradley Beal says no, this deal's off.
Bradley Beal's probably not going to say, although
maybe,
I don't know. He could say, I mean, it's in Cali, and then you're playing with Sabonis and DeRozan and Monk. And
would
Keegan.
You agree though that Beal is like the absolute wrong kind of player as far as like what the Kings need?
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
so they're doing it.
But, I mean, you're getting Jaime Jaquez and 3 first round picks. You're getting off Huerter's money. I mean, but you have to take on Beal's money. So that's
there's so. Do you like? I like the Lakers offer better from that for Fox with the Kings, don't you? Because there's just mainly because Beal's money's not in it.
Yeah, and I think I prefer Austin. I mean, Jaime Jaquez Jr. might get better, but I'd probably prefer like the 2 Lakers first round picks are arguably more valuable than any of the first round picks you're getting in this deal.
Yeah, because the best of those is the Heat's 29 first, which is maybe you could argue that's of comparable value to the Lakers 29 first. I think there's more downside for the Lakers than for the Heat, probably just because the Lakers, I mean, the Heat still have Bam, they have Hero, like they're getting Fox, so that's another thing to consider. Is like you just sent a really good player to the team who's 29 first. You got the access to.
Yeah, I like this. Who's the team you like it for most? Is it Phoenix? You only have to give up 2 of those first.
Yeah, it's definitely Phoenix because
I think
they're getting off. Hold on, Phoenix is getting off Beal, and it's only giving up 2 of those worst of firsts. So they still have one of those, right, to use on a Nurkic offload if they want to. So that's
assuming
like
someone takes Nurkic for 1 first
or
round
Grayson
pick.
Allen or whatever. But I think the Suns come out looking the best here.
Do you like this you liked it for Miami? You didn't like it for Sacramento, right?
Don't like it for the Kings. Love it for the Suns. For the Heat,
it's risky.
Yeah, it's risky. I think I don't know. Just turning Butler into Fox and it's costing you Jaquez and a 29 first. It's not crazy. Crazy. It's okay for them. It's okay for them. It's bad for the Kings. It's great for the Suns.
Let's move on to the Milwaukee Bucks here. This is a challenging team. Zach LaVine to Milwaukee 4. The Bulls are getting Chris Middleton, Bobby Portis, and a 2031 first round pick and a 2031 second round pick. So
he can't do it, which Zach acknowledges but he does note that you got to dump Connaughton to get under the second apron before you do this. So
right. How do you do that though when you've given up that second round pick and that first round pick?
That's tough. I don't know what you're using to do that.
You need Connaughton to go out in this deal, basically.
So rope in a third team, send Connaughton, and get that 2031 second rerouted to we'll just say Detroit or whatever, who can take him in for a second somehow. I don't know. Like you need to expand this a little bit, I think.
And you probably have to give up more than is AJ Green have to go out for that? Would you do it in a vacuum though as Milwaukee? So you're getting off of Connaughton's money while giving up all of this. And then you probably have to give up, I would assume, is going to cost you. I don't think it's going to cost you Andre Jackson or AJ Green. I would
assume. I hesitate if I'm the Bucks. I do think it's fair to say LaVine is an upgrade over Middleton in a vacuum. I think some of the defensive issues that he would raise paired with Lillard in the backcourt are kind of scary. And you're really firing your last bullets to get Zach LaVine. And then if this doesn't go really well, I guess you could trade Dame, you could trade Lillard, or Lopez, and I don't know. I think this probably brings into play like a downside you might not want to mess with if you're the Bucks.
Yeah, I'm probably with you, but if you were able to get off Connaughton in the process, I understand the appeal, especially given the state of Chris Middleton's body, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess Giannis is just backup center then at that point.
Are the Bulls incentivized enough to do this? Because I think
if you're getting Milwaukee's 2031 first round pick, I just do because these could be expiring contracts if Middleton and Bobby Portis decline their options.
Yeah. I guess that's true. And if there's not a 2 first offer out there for the upside of that 2031 Bucks first is real high. That's another thing to think about too. Yeah.
I bet you the Bulls say no though in real life. The real life Bulls would say no.
Well, yeah, they'd say no to everything.
Minnesota, Grant.
All right. The Wolves are getting Malachi Branham, a 25 second round pick, a 26 second round pick, and another 26 second rounder from Utah. And they send Nickeil Alexander-Walker, your favorite, my favorite, everyone's favorite, to the Spurs. The Spurs win. That's a great trade for San Antonio.
I don't even know if Nickeil Alexander-Walker necessarily fills a need for them, but that's because you have Steph Castle. Nikhil's he's a better shooter for sure.
Yeah. So I think as Zach, it looks like in the second graph here is talking about this again, big surprise. The Wolves are thinking about cost savings. Na is heading into free agency. And maybe you just want to get assets and a cheaper guy in exchange for him because you're afraid of what it's going to cost. From that perspective, this is in fact in keeping with how Minnesota has operated. We are scared of paying a lot of money and we'll make the team worse because of that fear. I just think if the Wolves did this, can you imagine how disappointing that would be?
Oh yeah. By the way, there's a chance 2 of these seconds, the Spurs is this year, and then that Utah pick next year are in the 30s. Mm-hmm. So that's not nothing, but yeah, this would be a bummer. And I also bet that Malachi Branham would be going to a third team instead of Minnesota as part of this.
Yeah, maybe so. I don't know what he is in the league going forward.
I would riot though if I'm Minnesota fans and
Yeah.
this is a trade that went. I would love it for the Spurs though. New Orleans, here we go. Kelly Olynyk and Bruce Brown to New Orleans, as well as a 2025 second round pick via Portland, a 2026 second round pick, and a 2027 second round pick. So Olynyk, Bruce Brown, and 3 seconds to New Orleans for Brandon Ingram. Whoo! We did see, wasn't it Jake Fisher or was it Mark Stein reported that the Raptors are interested? I have no idea what the Raptors are doing anymore. But I mean, as a flyer, I don't love the fit of Scotty and Ingram and RJ and Pirtle. I guess if Quickly and Dick are both healthy and shooting the ball well, there's a lot of optionality there. Would you do this as Toronto just for the flyer? I think I'd probably do it, but is this enough for New Orleans?
I would, and then my very first thought is like, if this is what the offers are for Ingram, I'm just going to hold on to him and hope for a sign and trade, or he comes back at a number I can stomach. But yeah, Toronto for sure. Just like get the best player and see, right? And then because that applies to, maybe you can get him back at a number you like, applies to Toronto too in this hypothetical. Like maybe you just get to the summer and you decide, oh, he's going to take like a 2 for 55 or something, you know what I mean? Like, or a 1+1 or whatever. Yeah, I do it if I'm Toronto. I think if I'm New Orleans, I'm going to hold on to him.
I don't even know how to incentivize it because you could offer to get New Orleans out of the tax, I suppose, by taking on, but I don't know what money they don't want after this aside from minimum. So this is like a dollar for dollar match too as a trade. The Knicks, Grant, sell me on this.
Jonas Valanciunas to the Knicks.
No, let's move on.
You're out
I'm out
for that reason. Dan's out. For Mitchell Robinson, a 25 second that's coming from Boston or Memphis, and a 26 second from Detroit, Milwaukee, or Orlando. So Robinson, a couple seconds for Valanciunas. If you're the Knicks, why do you do this? There are reasons you could come up with.
I think it's just it lightens Karl Anthony Towns' load during the regular season, at least. I don't think it's going to help in the playoffs. And then it doesn't. They've had some defensive rebounding issues of late, but Jonas Valanciunas isn't going to address those when Karl Anthony Towns are on the floor if he gets pulled out on the perimeter, because you can't play those two together.
Yeah.
I understand Mitchell Robinson's not playing. This is the nadir of his value. He's on the books for less than the mid-level exception, non-taxpayer mid-level exception next year. I'd rather roll the dice and keep him. Honestly, if I was Washington, I would do this deal straight up
in a heartbeat.
Just for the flyer on like what Mitchell Robinson's pick and roll defense. And if you wanted to try playing him next to Alex Sarr, that would be semi-intriguing. Mm-hmm. Honestly, that the health stuff is there with Robinson, but if this is the best you can do, I'm not doing it as New York. What about you?
I think I agree that Washington should just do this if it's JV for Robinson, and getting seconds is like, where do I sign? I agree. This is another one of those where it's like Robinson really is the Knicks like way to get something like, and that's kind of, if you're going to make a consequential change, it has to come through Robinson. I would almost value the possibility that Robinson comes back and is just better than Valanciunas over the balance of the year in the playoffs. I would be interested in finding that out, especially because I agree. Valanciunas just isn't going to be playable or helpful like when the Knicks should care about, right?
No, I'm with you. So I understand it from like a depth perspective at the moment, but it feels a little too short-sighted for me. That's the challenge that the Knicks are facing, by the way, because I don't know. I'd be curious to know like what Mitchell Robinson's deal is viewed like around the league, because he's probably just in the same bucket as Robert Williams now, right? Like he has his limitations, he's injured, but when he's playing, he's super intriguing, and his contract is not in theory bad.
And it's just complicated by the fact that Robinson, the hypothetical of Robinson coming back this year makes him more valuable to the Knicks than any other team. So it's like you're dealing from a lopsided kind of position.
If you're looking for another Mitchell Robinson trade, though, I had a 3-team one go live on Bleacher Report. You go check it out. We won't relay it here because I confused the shit out of Grant while he was looking at it. So we're not just going to voice it.
Not hard to do, in fairness to you.
Oklahoma City Thunder, they received Colin Sexton for Isaiah Joe, Ousmane Dieng, and Utah's own pick this year, which is top 10 protected. And it's not going to the Thunder in the first place. But the value here for Utah is, what are the protections after this season? I think it's for another year, right? So it's top 10 and then top 8 next year before it just extinguishes. Utah should do this I think. If I'm OKC, I might do it just because you're not giving. I mean, no, I don't know if I could do it because Isaiah Joe's really their only caps lock shooter, and that like gonna fly around and do stuff away from the ball and get up threes in that vein. I think that this is, I don't know. The value here is right. I just wonder if, like, if you're getting Colin Sexton, wouldn't it make more sense to send down Aaron Wiggins or no? Are you thinking about defensively?
I mean, I'm just thinking from the Thunder's perspective, this is a regular season move to prop up, and Zach notes this, to prop up the minutes essentially when Shea is off the floor, which have not gone well. I think the issue you run into is, well, I mean, maybe you do use Sexton for a few minutes a game in the playoffs with Jalen Williams when Shea is off the floor. And given the level that the Thunder are at and the number of postseason rounds they hope to get through, it might be worth it to have the guy that you, if Sexton is that guy. And I think you'd argue he's more likely to be that guy to prop up the offense than Joe or Wiggins or whoever else you might want to send out. I still think if you're Utah, you're just like, yes, sure, absolutely. I don't know. The more I kind of mull it over, I kind of like it for both. You could just make the case that the Thunder, like, it's just they don't need to do this, but I don't know. I guess it just depends on how confident you are that they can shrink the rotation enough in the playoffs to where the non-SGA minutes are basically non-existent.
There's also value in Sexton comes off the books as you have new deals, presumably for Chet and J-Dub kicking in.
Yeah. Interesting.
It would depend on whether the Thunder, you said it, think that Colin Sexton's playoff viable for them.
Because
the Orlando Magic.
Because for OKC, it's like just the assets are just, you got enough. You can spend them on things like this that might seem kind of trivial. It's that they can justify that if they think Sexton will help a little bit.
Would you prefer as the Thunder to send out Aaron Wiggins as opposed to Isaiah Joe in that type of a deal, or no?
God, it just depends on which night you catch Wiggins. I feel like, I think it's not good. Wiggins is real good. I think I might rather hold on to Joe, which is what you said, right? Just because his as like specialist skill, I feel like could really matter.
The Orlando Magic, they received De'Aaron Fox. The Kings received Jonathan Isaac, Anthony Black, a 26 first round pick, and a 28 first round pick, and then a 2030 second round pick via Milwaukee.
Ooh.
This is interesting. It'd be basically a rebuild for the Kings. Maybe not if they think Isaac is healthy and you still have some bonus in DeRozan and Monk, but you're still getting 2 first round picks. Honestly, I wonder if you would need to include like the less favorable of Denver's and Orlando's pick this year, which Orlando owns both of them as well. And then I feel like it might be a green light for Sacramento, and I'd probably still do it as Orlando. What do you think?
I think this might be a green light for the Kings as it is. The problem is those Orlando picks. It's the same thing with the Heat issue a minute ago. It's like you almost don't want the picks from the team you're sending Fox to if you can help it, especially if the team already is like, the injuries have changed things this year, but is already like pretty good. And Fox is a piece that might really make them a lot better. So I think you might be right that you probably want to ask for, hope there's another first thrown in, even if it's kind of a middling one. But I'm kind of into the idea of Isaac and Black just fitting in with what the Kings have. I like the Isaac Sabonis fit is weird, but that like Isaac plays.
Just have Isaac back up Sabonis at that point. He's only going to play like 12 or 15 minutes a game anyway.
Yeah, it would give the Kings like such different dimensions too, because Black really does make more sense if you're holding on to Monk, and like I think he makes plenty of sense with Murray. DeRozan's a weird fit with kind of anybody. But I kind of like it for the Kings. I'd ask for a little more, but if push came to shove, I don't think you turn this down out of hand.
No, if he really is just San Antonio or bust, basically, but you're getting Anthony Black, 2 first round picks, and Jonathan Isaac. Plus, I mean, the 2030 second from Milwaukee, we don't know where they'll be. I think it's close. Man, what would the Kings spend? I know Fox isn't the best shooter, but he's someone who can shoot. You're going from like that to Isaac and Black, and then you have DeRozan, and Sabonis has shot the 3-ball really well this year, but not like he's never going to be high volume.
So Monk and Murray are doing a lot of spacing lift, I think, in that configuration. What about, did we talk about Orlando's side? Do you do this if you're Orlando?
Yeah, I would do it.
I think you do too.
And just like I know Fox isn't the best shooter, but 37% on step back threes this year and can organize the offense. And I think his off ball opportunities would go up both in quality and volume with Franz and Paolo there. And this is, especially if it's this deal, I know you're going to worry, oh, well, Fox needs to get paid. Suggs is getting paid. Wagner's getting paid. Paolo needs to get paid. You kind of just have to figure that out as you go. I love this deal. I think they're a championship contender after this trade, I think.
I mean, they get real interesting. You can imagine pick and rolls where like you got to have someone quick on Fox and someone big on Paolo, and you get switches there. It's over for either of those guys.
What have we talked about? Wanting Orlando to play faster, even when they're in the half court. Fox should help you be able to do that too.
Good one.
I like that one. Oh boy, Grant, have fun.
The Philadelphia 76ers, Dan, get Jimmy Butler and Alec Burks. The Heat get Paul George and a 2026 first round pick with top 5 protection. Man. So the Sixers are keeping Butler in this hypothetical, which is the homecoming angle is fraught, I guess. Different.
So
what do we do here?
What are you basically doing? Because you're planning on re-signing Jimmy Butler, right? So you're just assuming basically that you would prefer, you're giving up a 26 first round pick for the right to have what, Jimmy for one fewer year than Paul George's contract goes out?
I mean, and you're betting, I guess, that Butler, in addition to that, is just going to be better than George, because you still very much care about the short term, as in addition to like the length of contract you sign, you've got George inked to, and that you would sign Butler to. Do you think the next, forget money, who's the better player over, let's just say, the next 3 years between Butler and George? Make it 2 if you want.
I think it's Butler.
I think so too.
Is it worth giving up a 20? I would do this as like without the first round pick included. I would consider it.
The Heat. So that's the Sixers side of it. I mean, if you could just put aside the personal stuff and the fact that Butler's exit from Philly was complicated, I think I like it. I think it makes the Sixers better on the floor, which might be all they care about. And you do have downside protection with the top 5 protection on that 26 first. If you're the Heat, are you really, I mean, they said they don't want money that goes into next year. You're getting big money that goes into next year and well beyond that in George. You're also theoretically getting someone whose health you can't rely on as you're trying to hold on to your pick by making the playoffs. That's iffy.
And the other thing, just based off stuff we've heard about Paul George during his time in LA, he's not a fit for Heat culture.
Right. It doesn't seem like it. That's a great point. I like it more for the Sixers if you could just pretend that Butler would be cool staying there.
So you'd be cool giving up that first round pick?
I just think having I don't know. I'd like to know what happens to it if it doesn't convey. But like, yeah, you might be giving up.
Just because you can't count on Embiid or Butler really to be healthy. And then what? Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain are going to keep
the Sixers sort of put themselves in the same position they are right now, just doing it again, right? Because they've got the top 6 protected first going to OKC right now. Yeah. And it's like, can you tank hard enough? Probably not. So this is like, you might just give up the number 7 pick. I don't know. It's interesting. It's more interesting than I thought a Butler for George deal would be.
Now, do they own an additional? So they own an additional 26. So that's how they give up their own 26. All right, all right, interesting. I don't think I would do it honestly, I don't think I'd do it if I'm either team.
The Heat, it's antithetical to what they've said they want, which is like fairly clean books and the ability to like hopefully make the playoffs.
We have a banger here for Phoenix. The Phoenix Suns received Jimmy Butler. The Miami Heat received De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Huerter, and a 2025 second round pick from Denver or Philadelphia. The Kings received Bradley Beal, Jaime Jaquez, a 2027 first round pick, a 2029 first round pick from Miami, and a 2029 first round pick. So we already did this deal, right? It's the exact same one.
I'm trying to see if anything's different. It's the worst of the 27, the worst of the 29, and then the 29 I think this is the same deal.
Yeah, I still, do we feel any differently about it, Grant?
In light of given time
Phoenix,
to reflect,
I still like it.
Kings are still not doing this, I don't think.
Who do you like? I can't remember what you said. Do you like it better? You like it better for Miami than Sacramento, though, correct?
Yeah, my order of preference is very much like it for Phoenix, kind of okay with it for Miami, do not like it for the Kings.
Is there anything that could be done for you to like it for the Kings? Like, what if the Suns threw in that third first round pick?
I mean that, and it's got to go to the Kings, because the Beal of it all is really
Yeah.
tough. Yeah, the only thing you could do, which basically nukes the deal, is just Beal's got to go somewhere else. We're going to need a fourth team and then another giant salary,
And then,
so the Kings
and,
aren't stuck with Beal.
and then the Kings are going to get fewer picks as part of that, I'm assuming. Too.
Yeah, which is okay because you just can't take Beal on. I just like a mid like a play-in level team that you can't do that to yourself if you're the Kings.
No, I don't think so. Which means you get to take us to the Portland Trailblazers.
Here we go. A name we haven't seen yet. Portland is getting Chris Middleton and a 2031 first from the Bucks for Jeremy Grant. There's top 5 protection on that 2031 first, if you care.
Absolutely not for Milwaukee. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Zach. If it was Middleton for Jeremy Grant straight up, it might be more like the Blazers. I don't know if they're ready to admit defeat there, but if you can get either Chris Middleton on an expiring or only 1 year left to get out from under Jeremy Grant's money, I'd probably consider it. For Milwaukee, I understand Jeremy Grant being more athletic and durable, better defensively at this point, but you were trying to get someone else who could, and he's done more one-on-one stuff, but we've never really seen it. Have we ever seen it in the playoffs from Grant? So
no,
this might be a no from Milwaukee, even if it's straight up with no.
It's a no from Milwaukee unless you've got information that's like Middleton is never going to be able to play, real minutes in a playoff series. That's the only reason you even consider this. But if you know that, I don't think the guy you're trying to trade him for with your only movable first is someone whose contract goes longer and just hasn't and seems to be on the decline too. It isn't for Grant if you decide Middleton's time is up.
I will say, if this offer was ever in front of Joe Cronin and he did not accept it, he should be banished from the organization immediately.
Yeah, this is a get out of jail free card for him.
What do we got for the Kings? Let's see. So the Kings receive Fred VanVleet, Reed Shepherd, and a 2028 first round pick with top 3 protection. The Houston Rockets receive De'Aaron Fox and Kevin Huerter. I mean, under the circumstances, I'm doing this as the Kings. We love Reed Shepherd.
Yeah.
Fred VanVleet keeps you relevant right now, and you're getting a first and getting off of the Kevin Huerter contract. The Rockets, I think, say no, mostly because we know they don't want to make a trade right now.
Mm-hmm.
If this was this might be a trade that could happen if it's the off season and the Rockets with the number 2 seed in the West get like trucked in the first round or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If it becomes clear, like we've talked about all year, it's like they got to figure out what the actual issues are with this team, like under high stress. And I could see that scenario where over the summer, if Fox is still in Sacramento, you revisit this. But like, for what they need, how much better is Fox than VanVleet really? Like he's better, but is he better? Is the gap large enough to justify just giving up on Shepherd maybe and that 28 first? Like you're taking Herter's money back too.
So if we're assuming this is an off-season deal, we're assuming that the Rockets got trucked in the playoffs,
right?
And then it's an expiring contract at that point, so that's not terrible.
So your first thought was you like this for the Kings and not for the Rockets?
I think this is a spectacular return for the Kings.
A lot depends on Reed Shepherd, doesn't it? Doesn't a lot depend on Shepherd being something?
Well, but it also, so in reality, I think it kind of straddles the line of what Sacramento is going to do, even though we think it's wrong, which is remain competitive after a Fox trade. And so you get better, you probably get a little bit better defensively going from Fox to VanVleet. And then also VanVleet's the better off-ball player, I would say. And you can rely on DeRozan, Monk, Sabonis to do a bulk of your creation. And then there's only a year left. If I'm the Kings, I'm probably just guaranteeing that VanVleet salary next year. And you get you're right that a lot does depend on Shepherd, but our view of Shepherd is that he might just be that dude.
Maybe. Yeah.
So you don't like this for Sacramento. That's interesting.
I don't love it. VanVleet, I'm going back and forth on I certainly don't think the Kings would view the ability to just let him walk as a positive because of what you said. Like, I don't think they're just, oh, we got to clean up the books. That doesn't seem to be what they're going to go for. So I think maybe you've got to look at, like, could Van Vliet be flipped? Are you looking to extend him? He does fit. You could make the case he's a better fit than Fox is for the reasons you said, like the off-ball stuff.
I find he's a better fit because the Kings incompetently built the roster.
Well, right. He's a better fit with a roster that doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, I guess maybe the Rockets are the ones that don't. Well, they've advertised they're going to be the ones that don't do this for starters. Maybe that's where we should end it.
But I would do it for the Kings, and you would.
I'd think about it. It's not a definite for me.
Another Fox trade, Grant.
Okay, here we go. The Spurs get De'Aaron Fox. The Kings get Chris Paul, Jeremy Sohan, Zach Collins, deals off, a 2025 first-round pick with top 3 protections from Atlanta. So that's going to be, I mean, teens somewhere, I guess. And a 2025 first with top 10 protection from the Bulls, which maybe that can yeah. So you're talking, you're most likely getting, as the Kings, Paul, Sohan, Collins, a couple picks in this draft that are, somewhere in the teens, maybe early 20s, I guess.
Although there's a chance. I mean, I guess Chicago's pick is top 8 protected the next 2 years. So would you bet, to start there, do you think the Chicago pick conveys at some point?
Go top 10, then top 8. Well, that's not a given. You would assume the Bulls won't do this, but if the Bulls just bottom out, it could be 2 more years after this one before they're conveying that pick. So maybe, I don't know whether it's like a coin flip, I would say.
Right. So there's a chance you walk out of this with only 1 first-round pick,
and it's in the teens or even the 20s. And so then you've got Collins. That's a bad deal.
Although he's immediately your best backup big,
which is, again, an indictment of the roster the Kings are
Trey Lyles. Best backup center, which, Trey Lyles again.
The Spurs, this would be like an investigated by the league, I think, if the Spurs could get Fox for this package.
How do you, Sacramento is, I understand why San Antonio would say no, but like Sacramento at least needs to get its swap rights back.
Yeah, right. Then I still probably wouldn't do it, but then we're talking a little bit at least. Yeah.
This was interesting, and I think Danny LaRue or Nate Duncan brought this up. That Sacramento Kings swap, those rights have, yes, it could be a nice lottery ticket, but it has more value to Sacramento than any other team in the league.
Of course. Yeah.
So it could do some lifting in this trade. I still don't know if this is enough, but like if Fox only wants to go to San Antonio, and if you're Sacramento, do you prefer Chris Paul to Trey Jones?
Oh, great. I mean, well, if you're trying to win this year, probably, but I think they shouldn't. I would just say this is another one where if this is the offer for Fox, I'm just saying we're going to chance it and go into the offseason and maybe even next year's deadline if that's what it takes.
I'm probably with you. So we're on to Toronto, and the trade is Toronto gets GP2 and Moses Moody for Kelly Olynyk.
Poison pill Moses Moody. I'm not doing this if I'm the Warriors for the reservations I expressed about Olynyk helping Dallas. I don't think Olynyk, I mean, like, yeah, I guess you could make the case how much better or more valuable to the Warriors is Kelly Olynyk than Quentin Post right now? Like he's more valuable. I don't know if it's enough to basically give up who might be your best perimeter defender and an expiring salary, which matters to the Warriors, and Moses Moody, who they still believe in. I guess Toronto probably does this because I think Moody.
Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't. And even I was trying to think, like, I would prefer Chris Boucher in, of course, Golden State, but I'm not doing that as Golden. I'm very high on Moses Moody though.
I'm not sure where I'm at on him anymore. But yeah, I don't think the Warriors do this.
You're deplaning all the Warriors youngster, Ben. Where are you at with Pods? You done with him too?
I'm out. Even though he's played really well the last couple games.
Anyway, the Utah Jazz are you.
Okay. The Jazz are getting Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles, and a 28 first from the Kings for John Collins. There's lottery protections on that 28 first. It's the Kings. I don't think the Kings are giving up a first for John. I don't think anyone's giving up a first for John Collins. That's where I'd start.
Kevin Huerter is shooting like Arctic cold.
Right.
So you're getting off his money for a player in John Collins who, when healthy, has actually played pretty well this year. But it's a 28. No, you can't. This would be malpractice.
Yeah. That's why I hesitated. I was like, well, no one would. Well, maybe they. I don't think you can do this.
The Jazz pounce on this, though, right?
100%.
So if they're the ones proposing this, that's good. Good job by ZB. Here.
There you go. Right.
Grant, last one. Are you getting emotional again?
Taking us home. The Washington Wizards get Cam Christie, PJ Tucker, and a 2032 second rounder. Probably our first 2032 pick we've talked about. And the Clippers get Jonas Valanciunas. Why not if you're the Clippers?
Well, can you explain to me, are you allowed to trade a 2032 pick? Aren't you only allowed to go 7 years out?
Let's say it's on draft night. I don't know.
All right. I'm not doing this as the Clippers just because, well, actually, you're out of the tax right after this, or no? No, you're not out of the tax. I need to get out of the tax.
Tucker's 11-ish. Cam Christie's 12-6 in outgoing for the Clippers. Valanciunas is 9-9. So we're talking.
They do duck the tax. Or no,
$2.5 million. That might be a reason to do it, honestly.
I'm just gonna assume that this was meant to be like a 2031, because don't they have a 2030 second round pick a swap with Utah? So it would be the less favorable of theirs or Utah's, or their 2031 second. I wonder why. Like 2032 feels like a typo.
Could be.
I still don't know. It gets you out of the tax, but a 2030 second round pick for Valanciunas. Just how much is he gonna play for you in the playoffs and in general?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not a change of pace big, which is kind of what I would like to see the Clippers go after if they're going to get another front court guy. A lot of this, I think, and Zach talks about this, a lot of this would depend on the Wizards thinking Cam Christie has something, which it's early enough in his career that like maybe.
Spoiler alert, I would do, if this is the offer that was in front of me or that they only wanted, I'd probably do this. Would you do this for Chris Boucher? The second Tucker and Christie, that's probably something you consider. Valanciunas is just Valanciunas, though, he could like do some stuff offensively for you when James Harden is off the court. I don't know. It's probably. Which team says yes?
Well, I think I would say I don't know. I don't know if anybody, that's what makes it hard here. I think from the Wizards' perspective, there's no harm in just holding on to Valanciunas and trying this again next year. If this is the best you can do.
Right. Although, to be fair, like Valanciunas is very clearly the best player in this deal. And so maybe the Clippers are like, hey, we get another second round pick for him if we need to move him next year.
Yeah. And I mean, we're getting off of Tucker, who makes more than Valanciunas and will never play for us. So, and yeah, you know what? I think the Clippers are probably doing this before the Wizards are. How about that? That's where I'll land.
Let's get to some news and more speculation. If you bailed out before we went through every one of the Bleacher Report trade ideas from Zach Buckley, you're missing out, because we're going to talk about LaMelo Ball joining the San Antonio Spurs. I don't know why I said Bull. LaMelo Ball, it sounds like, came out. So Jake Fisher wrote that the Hornets have never welcomed trade inquiries for their eccentric ball handler. And yet the Spurs, sources said, have tried to register their interest in Ball during previous transaction cycles. The fact that it says cycles leads me to believe that it's a plurality thing, so that they've multiple times let the Hornets know, like, hey, we'll take LaMelo Ball. They're also apparently interested in Josh Giddey, so I'm questioning a lot about the Spurs at the moment. Just some notes, because this is interesting because it's in the backdrop of the De'Aaron Fox sweepstakes. But LaMelo Ball is 4 years younger than Fox, or about 4 years younger, and he has 4 more team-controlled years left on his deal. So he's just going to be cheaper for longer relative to Fox's next match. How do you feel, Grant, about the Spurs of all teams being the one that's interested in LaMelo?
I mean, I understand it, honestly. Like, the Giddey, like there are, I think there's a couple of other players in addition to Giddey that were mentioned as guys they looked at it, Fox being one. So it's kind of like, well, all right. So they're just kind of canvassing things. I don't know how but acute their interest in LaMelo is. You're a bigger LaMelo fan than I am, which isn't to say I don't like him. I think he's a really interesting player, and he deserves the benefit of the doubt because he's been on a terrible team for his entire career, basically. And the 1 year they were okay, it was largely because of him. So I think it's really interesting. I think maybe the threshold question we should ask is, does he make more sense as a Wembanyama, like, running mate than De'Aaron Fox does? That's not to say that like the Spurs will just get their pick. They might not get either of these guys, but just all things being equal, do you like LaMelo better in San Antonio than Fox?
I do, because I think that in theory, his game is better suited if he's in a different situation to playing a. I mean, I don't know. Like Fox has done a bunch of stuff with Sabonis, but he's going to have, I would assume, more off-ball gravity from the perimeter, which that's very compelling when you have Steph Castle and Jeremy Sohan on your team. And so if you add Fox to that equation, again, I actually think that Fox is a better shooter than some of his numbers, than his surface level numbers indicate. But as you said, what I've been LaMelo's efficiency is all over the place this year, not in a good way. As I mentioned to you before we started recording, his teammates are in the 16th percentile of overall shot making. And so just like he doesn't have the talent around him to get high quality looks. And if you're annoyed by his shot selection, I really do think if you put him in a different program that he would be better. I love the size here from him too. And I think what I also like about the fit better is contractually, like he's on his quote unquote fun max for another few years. But what I do think is another way to go about this, if you're looking at attainability, Fox wants to go to San Antonio. The Kings apparently, and this is, by the way, if they knew it was headed in this direction, I understand them proactively shopping Fox. They should have done it over the offseason, not a week before the trade deadline. But can you get De'Aaron Fox because what does it take to get De'Aaron Fox versus what does it take to get LaMelo, who, as the reporting goes, like, if you want him, you're either waiting for him to get to a point where he maybe only has a year left on his contract, or you're creating your own market to get him.
So I think let's just talk about before we get into the finances, because I think that does really matter, or to some extent. I think LaMelo, just objectively, a way better passer than Fox. I'll just say a way better shooter. Like just the volume is one, he's guarded differently than Fox is guarded. I think you're totally right that if he's playing with better teammates, he's going to get better looks. He's shooting 40%, had to look it up, 40% on wide open threes this year. So like he's under 34% overall. A lot of that's because he's under 30% on tightly covered. It's just, I believe in LaMelo as a high volume 3-point shooter that defenses are afraid of. I don't think Fox has, maybe once in his career, has like approached that level, but never with the volume that LaMelo has.
Right.
Defensively, Fox is better. We don't really know what LaMelo might do on defense on a real team. And also, if that's your hang up, you have Victor Wembanyama on this team. So defense is solved. Like you can accommodate someone like Ball if he never gets any better defensively.
Especially if I'm assuming, I mean, maybe not. If you're probably going to have one of Steph Castle and Jeremy Sohan left.
Yeah, fine. And it's just, it makes, if you're 1 and you're 5, which LaMelo and Wemby would be, are both really dangerous, high volume shooters, you can accommodate like all kinds of player types and all kinds of limitations in the other 3 spots on the floor. So there's all that. The youth is a real factor because Fox, you could argue, is like, I mean, Fox is not going to age great because he depends, especially if he's not going to shoot it well. He's already maybe starting the downside, or like he's right at the top. I don't think Fox is getting better as he loses athleticism. LaMelo is right there in the age band you want with Wemby. So maybe then the question, as you alluded to, is like, are you as San Antonio willing to give up 4, 5 firsts for LaMelo? I think the answer might need to be yes, because you've got a bunch of extra picks and your own picks are not going to be very good. And so you can afford to throw those in a package too. So I'm looking for reasons that like you'd even consider Fox over LaMelo if you had the choice as the Spurs.
I think just attainability, right? Yeah. Because Fox wants to go there and he's available. Whereas with LaMelo, and the number of picks you have to give up is only going to mushroom if you're not willing to include a Steph Castle, or I would include Jeremy Sohan, but I don't know. They have Tijon Salon and Miles Bridges there. And Brandon Miller. I don't know what value they're going to ascribe to him. Would you give up Devin Vassell for LaMelo Ball?
I'd give up Castle. I mean, like I like Castle a lot. I just think if it's like Castle and 4 firsts, cool. If it's not Castle, I'd do 5. If it's Vassell, I don't know what does New Orleans, I mean, just New Orleans, different city now. Do the Hornets, Charlotte, want Vassell like in their current state? I guess like his contract's okay. It's fine. I don't know. I guess he's all right if Miller's your 3,
If you're
Vassell 2.
pivoting, maybe you don't. I think you would prefer Sohan or you would prefer Castle for sure. I would. I think the question would be: would you rather give up Castle or include more first round picks as part of a LaMelo deal?
I mean, I guess if I think my first reaction would be as the Spurs, I've got enough extra picks to do that. The other thing too is like it would get complicated if it's Fox and you've got to give him that third contract. It's going to make it a lot harder to get a third star once you have to supermax Wemby. LaMelo being on the fun max makes getting that third guy quite a bit easier, I would say, financially.
Maybe not if you give up 5 first round picks like you're telling them to
but
do.
you still got plenty. I mean, you still got, I don't know.
Well, I mean, so their extra picks are the Chicago pick this year, which is top 10, and then it's top 8 for 2 more years. They have the Minnesota pick, but one of them's a swap. They have a Minnesota outright pick, and they have 2 Atlanta first round picks outright, plus a swap with Atlanta. So they have that plus all their own first round picks. So even if you didn't deal, I guess you have to find the right balance then between keeping those other picks and like including your own, but like because your own picks aren't going to be super valuable. But I think they have the benefit of if they included like the more favorable, or if they included both of their 2025 picks, like Chicago's and their own, even if you're getting LaMelo this season, like there's still some real value to yours because you might just be so one, LaMelo's injured recording this, which would be another thing that we could talk about, the injury risk with him. So if it was something like both the 25 first and then one of the Atlanta picks and then one more of your own pick, then you fill out the salary from there. And then you think what you would need Sohan or it'd have to be Castle. I might consider doing that. I know Spurs fans are really high on Steph Castle. LaMelo can drive your entire offense. And we have not seen, Steph Castle's not supposed to be that player. And so if we get into saying he's not going to be that player, it's kind of operating under the assumption that he was ever supposed to be. And I just never, even him coming out of college, that's not something I considered not just as part of his game, but even part of his eventual growth.
Yeah. I love a lot of things I love almost everything about Castle. And I do think his fit next to LaMelo is really interesting. I would still say though, that like, if you're making this trade and you have Wembanyama, so your intentions are to be a contender, sooner than later. I don't know if Castle's ever going to be able to shoot. I'm not confident at all that he's going to be like a shooter that defenses care about anytime in the next like 2 or 3 years, which is kind of when your window is starting. Really, if you're the Spurs, I don't know why you're like pushing it out any farther than that. Especially because once you have to pay Wemby, like you need to kind of go for it sooner because you've got Wemby on the rookie scale deal, and that allows you to really go for 1 or 2 other like real guys. So you could just make the case that Castle might have a super high ceiling, but it's just not going to reach it in time. I don't know. Just trying to justify like San Antonio trading a player I really, really like overall.
I think it would have to be something like if it's Steph Castle and 3 firsts versus not Steph Castle and 5 firsts, that's probably where I'm sort of like, I'd probably rather give up Steph Castle.
Yeah.
And then I think some people would say, well, like, should we give me up 5 first round picks for anyone? As you said, the Spurs have extras, and they could also game it to where if they're keeping their own picks in the years that they own these swaps in 2030 and 28 with Boston is the 28 one, 2030 is Minnesota. That's actually like, that's valuable for them because it's okay. Like we have those sort of lottery tickets coming down the pipeline. I don't know what the number of, I love the LaMelo fit in San Antonio and I'm higher on it than Fox. I just don't know, like both of us have kind of hedged, like what is your right now, your max offer that you like, your best offer that you'd be willing to give up for him?
Well, and I think I'm more fixated now on the other side of it is like, what's Charlotte willing to consider? Because if
you have 4 first round picks on the table, you have to, LaMelo has missed so much time.
That's true. And it's so hard. Cause like, that complicates everything. It's ankle stuff. Like we saw Steph Curry get past that. Maybe LaMelo will, maybe he won't. I just think if I'm Charlotte, even with the injury stuff that makes me concerned, I still like which of the picks coming from San Antonio is like the highest upside, like which of those could be a top 5 pick, if any? Is it like the distant one from Minnesota maybe,
Or
or
maybe like if you're giving up 2026, like the Atlanta swap or that 2027 Atlanta pick, maybe.
I still think those are likely to be in like the middle of the first round based on what Atlanta has right now. Yeah, I guess that's part of the reason I am just like thinking it's going to take a lot of volume pick wise, because I don't think Charlotte can look at what might be available from the Spurs and say there's even one like, oh yeah, that's a choice
And
pick.
that's why you might need to include Steph Castle, though.
That's
Is
a great,
because
yeah, right, exactly.
because I don't know that people consider Jeremy Sohan's carved out a role in San Antonio, but he's like a very specific player.
Yeah,
And I don't know that he's going to be viewed, especially now that he's getting so close to his next deal, as a blue chip
no,
asset. Steph Castle will be.
yeah, I think that's right. So I think the more we talk about it, I think Castle probably has to be in the deal if I'm Charlotte.
It's probably like Castle plus 3 to 4 first round picks. And then maybe you can get, not maybe, but like you try to get Charlotte to take back Zach Collins' money as part of the deal as well.
Yeah. And if I'm the Spurs, I'm doing that. I think it's worth it.
My actual biggest cause for pause would be the LaMelo health stuff. Like you need, because that's a lot of time missed. And I know there are some people that believe like, well, how long is Wemby's prime? He takes excellent care of his body when it comes to rest, but he's just built.
Yeah.
He's such a physical anomaly that you do wonder, okay, what's the risk of tying him to someone who we know is not durable?
Yeah. I mean, you're screwed either way, I guess. It's like if Wemby doesn't stay healthy, then it doesn't matter what you do. Like just
So don't think in those terms, but the mellow of it all doesn't scare you at all.
Oh, it would scare me, I guess, because it's not like it would be different if it's like, oh, he's coming off his second meniscus trim, or like he's got an ACL or an Achilles. It's like, yeah, ankles are. I mean, he's missed a ton of time, and so I don't want to trivialize it, but it's like, I don't know how many guys have had their careers derailed by like persistent ankle sprains. Like, it's more like we worry about it and then they go away. I don't know. I'm sure there are examples that will prove me wrong, but it's the nature of his injuries make me less concerned than like, oh, he's got this back thing that flares up all the time, or he's like, it's Zion where it's like a hamstring every other month, like that kind of thing. I'm less worried about it than I would be some other injuries, but it's got to be a consideration. Like, I think if you don't, as the Spurs, if you hesitate or you just say we're actually not interested, it's more likely to be because you're worried about the injuries than the culture fit or the like, how serious is he? I think that stuff, if you believe in your culture and you think Wemby is like the tone setter he appears to be, I don't think that should hang you up so much as the injury stuff, which again, I could get over if I'm the Spurs.
And he's only needed to have ankle surgery once, right? So there's also kind of like, are there some of these instances where he might have played more if the Hornets were better?
Maybe, yeah. I'm sure the Hornets aren't like rushing him out there to get back, just because usually the season's off the rails fairly quickly.
So we like LaMelo better than Fox, but one of them's available, the other one apparently isn't. But I think the Spurs have enough assets to maybe change that for Charlotte.
And they should try.
This next piece of news is interesting. So Shams Charania, as we're recording, reported that the favorites to land Jimmy Butler as of now are Phoenix or Golden State. Memphis is also kind of lurking per Mark Stein. But Mark Stein and Jake Fisher also report, Grant, that the Pelicans would build a package around Brandon Ingram to get him. We're going to get into a potential package, what it would look like. There's some complexity here. New Orleans still isn't going to pay the tax this season if they get Jimmy Butler. So they would have to send out probably like, I don't know, 51 million or a little bit more to duck the tax. There are also profiles like 30, 31 million under the tax next season without like a Brandon Ingram or a Jimmy Butler salary or their own first round pick. So you have to kind of like, well, what are they doing with their books moving forward? Is this, I guess, can you explain the interest in Jimmy Butler to me if you're New Orleans?
I bumped on that in a big way when I read that. It's really hard to justify. I think it can only be as part of a deal in which you are getting off other salaries you don't want, in addition to just kind of solving the Ingram conundrum. And you're also like, you're ducking the tax this year. That's a priority. Even in those circumstances, I think any deal you put together is like the sell is pretty hard for New Orleans, or harder for than it would be for the other teams we would talk about in a hypothetical, right? Because just like you want Butler, why? Like this year is a lost cause. It's zero value this year, other than if you get out of the tax. And then what do you want to happen over the summer? Like, do you want him on the books for 50? Do you want to see him walk for nothing? It might be that. I don't know.
Is it? And I just, that player option is so high. It's not even a situation, because we talked about this before we were recording, and I stopped us because we should talk about it here. Are you just kind of assuming that the market might beat him into James Harden type submission, where Harden didn't get anywhere near, he got 2 years and 70 this past summer from the Clippers. And so Jimmy Butler at 2 years and 70, if that's like the deal, even if it's a 1+1 is more palatable. But at that point, you're like, well, he's guaranteed $52.4 million if he picks up his player option. Is he really tacking on an extra year just for the right to make sub 18 million? So you have to imagine he's going to get at or near his max in the next contract. And okay, maybe this makes it, first of all, this doesn't make it easier to duck the tax this season. You almost need to trade CJ McCollum if you're going to make this trade. So I'd be just interested to watch Jimmy Butler and DeJounte Murray and Trey Murphy and then Zion Williamson together, and Herb Jones, just to see what would happen. Yeah. But I don't know that I understand the logic fully from New Orleans' perspective.
Well, and the key distinction between the recent Harden situation and the potential forthcoming Butler one is that Harden got that deal from a team he wanted to be on. And there's no indication that Butler has any interest in, like, if you're the New Orleans, you've got to recognize the downside of this is like, you just get a guy that's not going to report or reports and is like disruptive again. And you just, in addition to being terrible and expensive, you have a headache too. Like having dealt with all the Zion stuff, like, do you really want to onboard another, like, even if it's for a short amount of time, or even if he's away from the team, it's just like, I don't know. You really got to sell me on New Orleans side of this, because you get it from every other perspective. It's totally logical what we'll talk about here.
If Jimmy says he wants to be in New Orleans, does that make?
Yes, that would. Well, I believe him in this scenario. Yeah, that makes a difference. It still is. It's still like, I guess what you do as New Orleans to justify this, if he wants to be there, is say like, we could be pretty interesting with like Jimmy and Zion. The fit's weird, but it's weird with Zion no matter what. With Jimmy and Zion and Trey Murphy and Herb Jones and whatever, like, that if everybody's healthy, big surprise. We have to use that caveat
on defense. Healthy Jimmy, Herb, DeJounte.
You bumped on it, right? When New Orleans gets thrown out there as a Butler destination, like, that was wild to me.
But we did endeavor to see what a trade would look like. I'm assuming it would involve like 9 teams, but we concocted this 3-team scenario. It is on the screen. Grant, how about you walk us through it?
All right. So we've looped in the Detroit Pistons, because you gotta. And they are getting from the Pelicans. I'll just go through all the assets that Detroit is getting here. CJ McCollum, Jordan Hawkins, the Lakers 26 second, which comes via Miami, a 2030 second, which is the least favorable of Orlando or the Pelicans. That's coming from the Pelicans. A 2031 second, the more favorable of Miami's or Indiana's. So basically McCollum, Hawkins, and a bunch of seconds. Miami's getting Ingram and Jeremiah Robinson Earl. You could swap out a couple of other guys from New Orleans if you wanted to. Javonte Green, I forget who, Daniel Tice could be in there. And the Pelicans are getting Jimmy Butler, Simone Fontecchio, and Tim Hardaway Jr. Not the only way we can do this. We can maybe talk about the alternatives. But that's basically it. So Pistons, McCollum, Hawkins, Miami's getting Ingram and filler. New Orleans gets Butler, Fontecchio, and Hardaway. So let's walk it through one at a time and give the, like, why is this team doing this? So start with Detroit. What's the justification for Detroit?
They need another ball handler alongside Cade, especially with Jaden Ivey being out, and McCollum can space even when he doesn't have the ball. His contract's not good, but it only runs for one more year. Having him and Tobias Harris on the books seems prohibitive, but again, they both come off the books after next season. So unless you have big plans for off-season flexibility this year, I don't think it kneecaps you. And like Jordan Hawkins is a very interesting
Right.
as a shooter, as someone who's like even shown a little bit of on-ball chops. He's going to give you nothing defensively. So that's something to consider. You're basically getting 3 seconds and Jordan Hawkins to take on a year and a half of McCollum, which eats up the remainder of your cap space this year.
And
But
McCollum can help you. Like he can help. He actually, like, you know, the contract's not great, but he is another ball handler. If you're not going to have Jaden Ivey, and he can shoot it like that. Those are kind of the prerequisites to playing with Cade Cunningham, right?
Right. I wonder if for them, are they the team, as we're like going before we go, they're the team I'm most uneasy about with this, because McCollum makes sense, but you're also sending out Tim Hardaway Jr. has been good for you, but he's expiring. And then Simone Fontecchio, not having his best year, but just like as a shooter with size, who's not going to submarine your defense. So they're not, it'd be different if it was just, oh, we're getting this to take on McCollum, but it's also to take on McCollum and we're sending out Fontecchio and THJ.
Yeah, I can't decide if I have more reservations for Detroit or New Orleans here, because we talked about the Butler side of it.
Well, so with Miami at this point, weren't you telling me that you were listening to, why don't you relay that about the Jimmy Butler trade value just like plummeting?
Well, it's just like, I can't remember what I said 5 minutes ago, Dan.
Me that you were listening to Warriors plus minus, and that people around the league, the reporting that was like, are shocked at how low the Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, it's gotten to the point where it's like, it might not be first. Miami might just be cool with like, does the money come off the books? Yes. You know, it might get to that point. So that's the thinking here, right? Is that Ingram may just come off the books. You don't care about Robinson Earl or whoever it winds up being as additional filler. But like, Ingram is someone that I can see it. I can see the Heat like turning Ingram into the best version of himself. I don't know if that's an outdated way to think about Miami. I just think that's a possibility. And he either comes off the books or you probably bring him back at a number that you're happy with. And Miami kind of gets a win-win there because you don't have the Butler opt-in hovering over your head.
Yeah, I think with Miami at the point it's at, this is a really good deal.
It's a win. That. Yeah, I agree.
Look, it's costing you seconds, but Pat Riley and Andy Ellisberg have never treated seconds like they matter anyway. So I actually like it for the Pelicans because you're surrounding questionable fits with shooting. And the other thing is because you're getting off McCollum's money, you now have a bunch of room under the tax where it's like, it's still going to be tight, but I think you go from having, what do we have, like 30 million that was with McCollum and Hawkins on the books. And now that's going to go to like 60 plus. So you factor in Simone Fontecchio, let's say you're 60 million below the tax. You can fit Jimmy's max in below the tax. And then it's okay. Like, where's our first round pick land and what are we doing from there? So it'd still be tight, but it's at least doable.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to talk about the other like possible configuration of this deal?
Yeah. So it's basically like you would trade CJ McCollum to Detroit, and Detroit, instead of sending Tim Hardaway Jr. and Simone Fontecchio, sends you Tobias Harris, which I don't think Detroit in that. I know CJ McCollum makes more. He's the better fit. I don't think they need additional compensation if they're getting off of Tobias Harris.
Yes. And then if you're New Orleans, it's kind of like, I'm not sure how we feel about like the part of the appeal for New Orleans is Fontecchio is like cost controlled and Hardaway's coming off the book. Like it just feels cleaner.
Yeah, and the other thing, now your books get, okay, you saved a little bit of money next year off next year's books, but it doesn't matter when you're factoring in Jimmy Butler's salary. So how are you ducking the tax while paying Trey Murphy, DeJounte Murray, Zion Williamson, Jimmy Butler, and Tobias Harris next year? That's going to take, and this says nothing of Herb Jones. His money is just not that large. That's where it gets tough. I think if you're the Pelicans and that's the end result of this, you need to hope that you need other moves lined up to duck the tax this year. And then you're probably going to end up making more moves in advance of next season. I personally, if the Pelicans are actually interested in this structure for me feels more sensible for them. But if Detroit says, hey, like, no, we're going to need a first round pick to do this, it kind of falls apart because New Orleans has no business trading their first round picks in any of the coming years.
Right. Especially with Butler being it's a fraught kind of acquisition for a lot of reasons.
Next on the agenda, Grant, read it to us.
This was the thing you were going to shock me with.
De'Aaron Fox to the Warriors. I was asked to come up with a trade on the Real GM podcast the other day. That was, I can't remember which bucket it was like in tiers, and it needed to be something that would surprise you. So I tried to find a De'Aaron Fox suitor that would come out of nowhere. So the deal I'm proposing to you is the Detroit Pistons. There they are again. They get Dennis Schroeder and a second-round pick that's top 37 protected. It's this year, comes via Miami, but from Golden State, or from Miami via Golden State. The Warriors get De'Aaron Fox, Keon Ellis, and Alex Lynn. The Sacramento Kings get Andrew Wiggins, Brandon Pajemski, Kevon Looney, Golden State's 2025 first, Golden State's 2027 first, the right to swap with Golden State in 2028, and then Golden State's 2030 second. How are we feeling?
I think I feel great about that if I'm the Kings. That's where I would start. One, because you get to flex a little bit and not send Fox to the one team he says he wants to go to. And that's basically, I mean, the 2 firsts, are we saying those are unprotected essentially? So 25 is not any good. 27, who knows? Wiggins is a good player that would actually like really matter for the Kings.
He would have been really good on the iteration of the Kings that De'Aaron Fox wanted to be a part of.
Yeah, he'd be great on most iterations of most teams actually in this role. Yeah, you have shocked me, so mission accomplished. I don't know if you're going to get like a cogent answer because I'm having a hard time from the Warriors perspective.
I know that the Warriors still duck the tax as part of this. I know that was a big concern.
Yeah.
You root for ownership to save.
I really care about how much billionaires have to spend.
You didn't even mention that Keon Ellis is on Golden State at the end of this.
Keon Ellis helps, and he's dirt cheap. That's like kind of that is a sweetener. It's still just like, I mean, is he more valuable than Pajemski and Looney going forward? I don't know. Again, I just keep coming back to, I love this for the Kings because Looney comes off the books. Also, first of all, Kevon Looney owns the Kings, so you don't have to play against Kevon Looney anymore. By the way, the deal works without Kevon Looney as well. If the Kings just decided we don't want his money back, but then the Warriors don't duck the tax. Who do you think is coming out the best here? Other than Detroit, who just gets to swoop in and like collect stuff for fun.
Well, if Dennis Schroeder's healthy, he's sapping up most of your cap space, but like you got an asset to fill a need. That's just for the rest of this season. I think you should do it.
Yeah.
Making out the best, I think it's the Kings here because you're getting, I don't know. I think the Warriors with Ellis, Fox, Draymond, and Steph and Kuminga still there. Like, that's a really good team. Like, that's a really good core to work. And you still have Moses Moody from there.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're making out the best here because you kind of you didn't have to give up the other part of that 2030 first rounder, which again, if it goes to Washington, you've done something right because it was protected, like a top 20 protected. And you're still like, you're not trading the entire stable. So I actually think the tough thing is you lose Wiggins, but the fact that Keon Ellis is coming back and is cost controlled for another 2 seasons.
Yeah.
I feel a little better about it. And you also, by the way, you didn't have to give up GP2 for the rest of this season. So if he's healthy, I think you have enough perimeter defense. I think they're the team in terms of talent in a vacuum, but for Sacramento's predicament, you could say that they're making out the best. I just don't, how much do they value pods when they have Devin Carter, Maurice Monk, DeMar DeRozan?
I think the criticism that you might hear is like, well, like what kind of fit do Fox and Steph make for as a backcourt? I think the response to that should be like the Warriors' number one problem is nobody can create a shot other than Steph, and Fox can do that. And so like, I don't really care if you've got to figure out who's guarding who among, on the one between the two of them. And Fox is like, he's fine defensively and can be good at times. So like, yeah, I don't know. I think that I definitely am struck by basically 2 firsts and a swap going out and Wiggins going out. But I mean, if
I just removed the swap, does that is there anything that would make you think that it's not potentially bad for the Warriors?
I mean, that 27 first, like who knows what that downside is. I guess if you have Fox and presumably you're going to keep him, your floor is fairly high. Maybe Kuminga develops like that into like a number 3 guy or something. I think the Warriors probably should do that. The Kings definitely should do that. And yeah, and then the Pistons are like, whatever. Unless the Pistons are like, we can actually get something better than a second for using our
which
cap
is
space.
honestly, they might
That's
say
the
that, or they
hang-up,
might
because
decide
this
to
can't
try.
get done without Detroit.
Yeah. But well, again, because you don't need Looney, like you could send Schroeder to. There's a way to work it without Detroit. Golden State just doesn't duck the tax, which
Yeah.
if you're going to pay, like if you're worried about Fox's next deal, I assume that would be a prerequisite for them this season.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, very interesting. You sufficiently shocked me, I have to say.
That was my only goal. Let us know what you think in the comments or our Discord, though, if you're seeing this. Grant, this is weird. Under 2 hours for a podcast, but are you ready to take us out of here nevertheless?
Under 2 hours for a content-rich podcast. Really, just everything you could want in a tight for us timeline. Thanks everybody. Thanks Zach Buckley for doing that trade slider. We're going to link out to that article because he did all the work and we just talked about it. So appreciate that. Thanks everybody for listening, for watching. Make sure if you're checking this out on YouTube that you check out Zach's article 1 and 2. You subscribe, comment there. Let us know what you think about the trades, what you think about our takes on the trades, what you think about the news and Dan's proposed trades, which are just, I'm still reeling a little bit. I wasn't ready for De'Aaron Fox to the Warriors, but I can adjust. Rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your enemies. Shout out Frank Ntilikina. Apologies, Jared Allen.